Well, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go over this week what I did last week, because I know that I made this statement last week. I did not have my notes. I didn't even have access to a Bible at that moment. So somebody just had to read the scriptures to me for me. So what I'm going to do is look at the same verses again, and if there's someone on the phone who was present last week, and you might get bored. I don't know. Chapter 13. I think it's chapter 13. Verses.
What?
In Revelations, I'm sorry.
13 Revelation.
Yeah, verses 16, 17, and 18.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Revelation verses 13.
Verse 16, 17, and 18.
Chapter 13.
Chapter 13. Don't let me forget to give that to you today. Verse 16 through 18. And he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. So, as I explained previously, these verses are not but the number 666 came, the understanding of it came to me after I looked up some other numbers. I've been seeing triple digits lately, and I saw 444, and when I looked up, it spoke to the idea of receiving from the other realm. And while I was on the phone talking to someone about something totally different than this, it came to me what 666 is. So, what I want to do first is look at verse 16 and 17, and then move to 18 with a deeper explanation, okay? Verse 16 says, he calls all. What he's saying is that it does not matter whether you're rich or poor, born or free, it does not matter. The beast says that you're going to receive the mark on your hand or in your forehead. That is talking about the hand. The right hand speaks of power, strength, and authority. The forehead it speaks to the third eye. So he's saying that you're going to submit your power, your authority to the beast, and you will not see with your third eye.
You will not see?
Not the beast, because once you submit to the beast, and I'll explain the beast in a moment. Once you submit to the beast, then the beast, it usurps authority over you. Now, the beast of which I speak we have spoken concerning the beast in other sessions. The same chapter 13 talks about, and I saw the beast of the sea, and then it talks about the beast of the land. It describes the beast of the sea with the 7 heads, 10 horns, etc. That's the beast of religion. It's speaking to religion. The beast of the earth is speaking to earth consciousness. And the beast of the earth receives its power from the beast of the sea. So religion is what gives the emphasis to the government to do what it does. And one of the reasons I believe that we are living Revelations is because um, when we look at the powers that be, what do we see? We see that they are undergirded by evangelical Christians. We see that they are undergirded by religion, and and so the government and religion are one. Now, so Neil when it talks about the power having been given to the beast of earth consciousness, please keep in mind that this is not about a church of racism. It's not about a Catholic Pope. It's not about a president of the U.S. or any world leader. This is about concepts. The whole concept of spirituality, the whole concept of religion is what it's speaking about. It's speaking about the concept of governing mankind and how they're being governed. And it's saying that the governance of mankind is based upon what it receives from the spiritual, religious concept. The religion determines what the government can do. So conceptually, when it talks about the freedom of that religion, church, and state are separate, that does not exist. It never has. Matter of fact, Ben Franklin got the Constitution from us. What? What is it? IQU, Iroquois Nation. And then they tweaked it to fit what they wanted. But anyway, the idea of church and state being separate is not true. And we see now that the concept of the church and the concept of the government are the same, because what do you see in the church? You see the Christian flag and you see the American flag. And you hear, regardless, without any regard or knowledge of what the government is doing, the church always supports the government as being right. Slavery could not have existed if it had not been for religion. It could not have existed. And without the church, Iraq would not have been invaded. So what did they do? They built up attitude towards Islam as opposed to dealing with the people who knocked the building down. You see where I'm coming from? Mm-hmm. And there was not one Iraqi involved at all. All of them were Saudi, except for one, and he was an Egyptian. But they went into Iraq. So this has more to do with a war against a group of people who are Muslims who refuse to submit to Christianity. Mm. So that's the concept of which I speak. And so it is when we talk about the mark of the beast, we're talking about the authority and the third eye. That's the 16th verse. Okay? Then, I'm sorry, 16, is it 15? 16 verse. 17th verse talks about you will not be able to buy and sell unless you have the mark. In other words, you will not be able, it's saying that you will have much difficulty functioning in this society if you don't submit to the government or the church or both. This is what I'm saying. When we look at what happened in the midterm election, we see that beneath the surface, the church played a role in what transpired, especially in Georgia and Florida. And all of those who did not agree with the government's candidate ended up with their votes pretty much not being counted. That's just one example of the struggle that exists because you don't submit to governing authority. Mm. So you say, well, that's not a problem until there is an election. No. It's beginning to be worse. what am I saying? If you, if you talk about how wrong the government is and you are at work, you will lose your job because most of the people who are in charge voted for the one who is in charge. So you can go in and tell them that you don't, that you're not a Christian and you believe that this government is wrong in what it's doing, and you'll be looking for a job. Because they will find a way to get you if you don't submit. Now, let me also say this. Some of you as individuals have experienced trials on your jobs. And it's because of the energy that you carry. It's because of who you are. And the funny thing about it is that because you won't just go along to get along, you feel like you're constantly being attacked. So, but that's all a part of this. This is the understanding of this particular aspect of it is much more difficult to explain, but the experiences are there. Now, when we look at the 18th verse, it says, "Here is wisdom." What is it talking? What is it saying? It says, okay, this is wisdom. What is wisdom? The things that I just said. The previous verses, that's wisdom.
Okay.
Then it says, "Let him that hath understanding." Understanding of what? Let him who have understanding of the wisdom. Let him who have understanding of the wisdom do what? Count the number of the beast. Or a better translation is calculate the number of the beast. Now, if we are being told that the number of the beast is 666, then what is it to calculate? So that's one of the questions that rose inside of me. What is it to calculate? Because it says that for the number, for it is the number of a man. You see that? However, we have been taught that 666 is the Antichrist.
Yeah.
That's what we have been taught. And we have been taught that unless you have that engraved on your forehead or your hand, literally, which is a tattoo-like thing, then you will not be able to function in society. And people have been, who go to church, have been and still are in many cases afraid of this happening because they feel like they're going to starve to death. Because they see it, this has been taught to be literal.
Yeah. I believe it.
And it's not literal. The other thing is that how is it that you can miss this and say 666 is the beast, but not see that it says that this is the number of man? How can you miss that? Because the reason you miss it is because we're looking at it with our eyes and not at the eye. And it says it's the number of a man. Now, it's talking about Adam. It's talking about the human. This is the number of the man. Now, the number, and I'm going to try to stick to my notes as much as possible. The number 666 is, as I said, the number of the beast or the number of man. And this is not speaking about a physical beast, rising up. It's not talking about a physical government rising up. It's talking about a concept being overwhelming. The words are speaking about religious concepts that are initiated by a man. It is a man seeking to find his perfection in his own philosophical religious system. It is man telling you that the only way to be saved is to go to church.
Is that the beast mentality?
Yes, it's the beast. The beast mentality, as we are speaking about in the scriptures, is talking about religion.
Okay.
So religion and government are the beast.
Okay.
Okay? And when you conflate the two, there is just a beast.
Right.
Because if you receive power from me, then I am more powerful than you.
Right.
It's like I'm a kingmaker. I'm not a king.
Right.
But if I make sure that the mayor gets elected, that the county supervisor gets elected, that the school board chair gets elected, then who's the king? So you see what I'm saying?
I got you.
So I'm a kingmaker. You might be the king of the city, the king of the county, the king of the school board, but I'm king of all three of you.
Right. I see that.
Yeah, so that's what it's talking about in that regard. That it gets its power. So that's the beast. It's the concept. Okay? Now, in the perfection of which I speak is not a thing without blemish. The perfection of which I speak is a false sense of being one with the Creator. It's a false sense of being, quote unquote, like Christ. Now, hear what I said. It's a false sense of being like Christ. What do you mean being like Christ? Well, if you are being, I don't know what they hang up or call it, but if you are being like Christ, you ask the question, well, he opened the blinded eyes, he's the Son of God. That's not true. Because if you tell me to be like Christ, you're telling me to be like the anointed. That Christ is used interchangeably with Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm talking about?
Yes.
So when you tell me to be like Christ, that in itself is a misnomer. That in itself is a bad translation of what the scripture is talking about. Jesus said, I did not come to destroy the law. I came to rightly interpret it. When it's translated, I came to fulfill it, read it in the original text. It says that I came to rightly interpret it. And the law of which you're speaking are the commandments, the 10 that we talk about all the time. So it's the law of the one who created us all. So when I talk about the desire to seek perfection through philosophical religious systems, I'm saying that perfection is determined by the one who manipulates the system. If you are in the church, the pastor is the one who determines whether you're right or wrong. I'm serious.
Yeah.
The Catholic Church. The Pope is the one who decides. Now, look at what's happened. The priests who molested and raped these kids, these priests, it's just not coming out. It's not that the Pope didn't know it. It's that it became public with a list, physical list, because it has come out before, but nothing was done, but there was no physical list. So now there is a battle between the government and the church because of the list. Why is it that a bishop who is on one of the lists can go to the Vatican and you can't extradite him, and there's nothing being done to him? So if you're telling me I'm supposed to be perfect like Christ and you're describing Christ as being Jesus, then when did Jesus rape little boys? You know, so if you're telling me that this is what perfection is based upon, then your perfection is based upon a system that's devised by man, as opposed to a spiritual understanding of the essence of who created us and for what purpose. So, because spiritual understanding is not a system, it is life. A system can be changed. A system can be manipulated. But life can't. We can fool ourselves. But it can't. The system is effective because it takes just enough of the truth to make you think it's true. And it's based upon the holy books of truth. And when I speak of religion, don't get it twisted now. I'm not just talking about Christianity, because Islam manipulates also. Hinduism, all of them manipulate. So I'm not just talking about that. The religious system tells us that we are supposed to be loyal to God. But the loyalty is to the God that the system created. Because the system does not tell you that when you are one with the Creator, you know who you are. The system tells you when you are obedient to God, which means being submissive to the God that they created, He gonna bless you beyond measure. Okay. How? Car, house, money. Material things. Now, if the system is telling you that these things, that you ought to be thankful to God because He's blessed you with these things, then why is it that Jesus said that you can't serve Mammon and Elohim? You can't serve both. You can't serve two masters. You go love one and hate the other. Mammon, when you look at in the original text, or even in the Greek as bad as it is, it says money. It's speaking of material things. So you cannot be submissive to, you cannot be controlled by the lack of or the amount of money you have. If you do, then you go love one and hate the other. So which one are you going to love? If you are saying that all your material things is coming from the one who created you, but then when you look in the scriptures and you begin to see that the Creator said, seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, all these things will be added. So your eyes at this point is not on the money, it's on the kingdom principles. So the blessing is actually the wisdom, understanding the wisdom of the kingdom principles. That's what the blessings are. Are you with me? Because if I'm seeking to understand the kingdom principles, I'm blessed with an understanding of it. I'm looking around. I don't look for anything. It shows up. And you question, well, I don't know where it came from. And I would tell you straight up that there was one summer that above, our bills and stuff, when we had 3 kids in college, we spent, on some schools, we spent $14,000. And one summer, I don't know where it came from. I can't tell you to this day. But we did. Now, the greed of man for more of everything, and the poor man's fear of not having is amplified by the beast. The rich man, the greed of the rich man wants everything. The greed of the poor man never has enough. You hear me? Both of them. If you are poor and you come to a conclusion that you have lack, and you are where you are in terms of your life, you have a place to stay, you have food to eat, etc., right? Now, why is it that you are watching what you have in relationship to what someone else has? But I don't do that. I just want to be comfortable with myself. No, you're fooling yourself. You are, the only way you feel like you're not comfortable is because you're looking at somebody who you think is. So both of them agree. They just approach from different, in different ways. You see that?
Yeah.
So again, and this is amplified by the government. It's perpetrated by the church, amplified by the government. Because the government talks about the stock market and how well the economy is based on the stock market. That's not true. Less than 1% of the people invest in the stock market. And if the stock market had a direct effect on the economy, we would be in trouble. Because all of the gains from January to September have been wiped out. So now you have a negative when you look at the stock market. So
recently that happened?
Yeah. Yeah, right now, there, there, there is no way that what has been lost can be regained by the end of the year. It's not gonna happen. So, this number, 666, speaks to the man's perfection of its religious system, a system that does not include the one who created us all and created everything that is. This system searches for material answers to spiritual truth. This system fosters the worship of it. We worship the system, meaning we submit to the system. You say, well, not really. Oh, yes, you do. You submit to the system. Why? Because if your attitude towards homosexuals is that they are sinning and going to hell, you have submitted to the system. If you believe if you believe that, think of something simple. If you believe that you cannot go to heaven unless you have communion and be baptized, you submit it to the system. Because if the word is spiritual, and it is, then everything in this word is spiritual. If we believe that Jesus was brought into this earth to give us a deeper understanding of spiritual truth, then even though Jesus was baptized, it was not speaking to a physical thing that had to take place. It was evidence of a spiritual truth. Before Jesus came into this earth, the rituals were, the spiritual truths were represented by rituals. And one of the rituals was mikvah, or baptism, physically. So, if Jesus came to bring a spiritual understanding of all of these rituals, then once this understanding is obtained, or once Jesus has done what he has done in terms of teaching this, then these rituals are not necessary anymore. Let me show you what I'm saying. Well, Jesus submitted to baptism. Yes, he did. Why? Because in order for him to be respected as a rabbi, he had to submit to that ritual. And the reason it became a ritual is because of what transpired when Aaron and his sons were baptized, it said washing, but baptized by Moses at the tent of meeting in order to initiate the priesthood.
Okay.
So that's where it came from. And if Jesus came to bring understanding of these spiritual truths, then that's what it's talking about, spiritual things. How do I know that? Matthew 28 says, "Go ye therefore into all the earth, baptizing them in the name of the Father, in the name of the Son, in the name of the Holy Ghost." It is not talking about water. It is talking about the immersion of understanding of the wisdom of the Father, of whom the Son, which is the seed, and the seed is the Word, and the Spirit, and that is the understanding of the Shekinah and how it functions in relationship to us. That's what he's talking about. So if we submit to, if we believe that the only way for us to be one with the Creator is to be baptized, then we have submitted to the system. What about the Aborigines in Australia who never heard about it? And this is what got Carlton Pearson in trouble, when he said that he did not believe that a just God would send all these people to hell who never heard of Jesus. And that makes sense to me, but I'm not going to get into that today. So, the 666 Okay, and this is where it gets a bit complicated. Um, uh, to me, it's simple because I see it, but to teach it to someone who is not open, they'll never get it. To teach it to someone who's open, you may struggle with it. But I want you to keep this in mind. There is absolutely nothing that I or anyone else teaches that you need to remember. All you need to do is receive it, embrace it. That's all you need to do. Embrace it as being who you are, not a part of your life, but your life.
Okay.
When you embrace it, if you need it, it will come up. The memory of it is not necessary because you're not going to remember everything that's being taught. I don't even remember. When you say to me, you told us blah, blah, blah. When you say you told us, then I'm like, oh my God, what was that? And I don't remember what I said, but if you say it, then it comes up. It brings it to my remembrance. You see what I'm talking about? So when you need it, it'll be there. Now, last week, when I went over this without my notes, so when I say 666 is the shell that covers 333, this is what I'm saying. 333 speaks to divine perfection or spiritual balance. Okay? 666 has covered 333 by mimicking it. If you can see 666 as a hollow shell, and if you can see it covering 333, that's what I'm talking about. How does it mimic it? It mimics it by taking just enough of it to justify what it does in the manipulating of humanity. Religion takes just enough to keep you where it wants you to be. Religion took just enough of the truth to justify slavery. There is no way that you could deal with the truth of the scriptures and go out at 3 o'clock on Sunday and watch a man get lynched while they serving and selling food like it's a festival, and watch them riddle his body with bullets, and watch them take his companion and hang them and light a fire under them and purposely let it burn slow so that you can cook them to death. And then leave there at 5:30 and be at church at 6. If you believe what's in the book, you can't do that. If you believe what's in the book, you can't lay down at night after having done that or witnessed that. You can't justify that if you believe in what the book says. So it uses just enough of the book to make what it wants possible. So when I say 666 covers 333, I am saying that religion hides the real spiritual balance. Are you with me?
Mm-hmm.
So, man attached its religious concepts to the words that lead us to divine balance. Man covered 333 by convincing others who are seeking the truth. If you are seeking the truth, what are we told, especially in our society? The only truth is Jesus. The only way you can get to the Father is by Jesus. Is it not?
Yeah.
When that is not what it says, when you look at the true translation of that scripture, it is not talking about the way, the truth, and the life, on the way you get there through. That's not what it's talking about. It is talking about the avenue to the Father is the same avenue that Jesus took, except by me doing what I did, is what he's saying.
Okay.
The same avenue. What is that avenue? The way is you have to employ the methods of the kingdom. The truth is the journey that you take, undeterred by the pressures you get because you are being challenged by the religious powers. And the life is an expression of who you are during the course of this journey of learning about who you are. Jesus did all of those things. This is what he is talking about. But if you buy into the idea of truth being the only way to get to the Father is through Jesus, by believing Jesus or submitting to Jesus, then you're totally wrong. Because Jesus said only the Father should be worshipped. So what is he saying? You don't submit to me. You submit to the Father. You don't pray to me. You pray to the Father. That's it. But we told, what do you hear? Bless Jesus.
Praise Jesus.
Praise you, Jesus. Hallelujah. Glory to Jesus.
Yeah.
You see what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
We worship you, Lord. You can't call Jesus Lord. Paul did that. Jesus never called himself that. Now, and I don't want to get into what Paul did. Not right now. So, when we look at this, the 333 of man, and I say man, I'm talking about mankind, okay? The 333 of mankind is its divine nature. And when this nature is subverted, we get man's version of what a divine nature looks like. When 333 is subverted, we get a vision of spiritual balance based upon how it is described by Adam, by mankind, as opposed to what it really is. So, when 333 is spiritual balance. It is the divine nature of man. When we subvert the meaning of this, when we allow our understanding of this to be manipulated by a different understanding of this, that's when we get 666. What are you saying? Here's where the rubber meets the road. 333 is the divine nature of every one of us, right? However, if we take 333 from the other realm, which is spiritual balance, then we look just like the other realm. Spiritual balance, right? However, if we take the divine nature that we have, which is 333, and we subvert it, we make it be what we want it to be, as opposed to what it really is. That in itself is 333. A religious 333 that's pretending to be spiritual religion. So religion is 333. Man's divine nature is 333, which is 666. Can you see it? That's where 666 comes from. It is the overlay of religion, is the overlay of religion on the divine nature of man. And it becomes 666 because it has no connection to the other realm. So it can't be reflective of the 333. So you have in essence created your own divine nature, and you have attempted to corrupt the divine nature that you were born with. right? So if you take those two natures and add them together, what do you get? 6, 6, 6.
Which is the shell that you.
The shell, yes, that's the shell.
Yeah.
That's the covering
Yeah.
that I'm talking about. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So, this is not a number. 666 is not a number to frighten anyone. It is a number to inform everyone of that which is of that which needs to be corrected. The correction that I'm talking about is not correcting the church, it's not correcting the government, it's correcting you. When you correct yourself, when you embrace who you truly are, then you will understand what Jesus meant. When Jesus said, this is what y'all don't understand. I say that you're the light of the world. What is he talking about? You are the enlightenment for all the diversity in this earth. That's what he's saying. But what are you talking about? How can that be? You are, when you embrace who you are, when you make sure that your light is shining, as opposed to you putting it under a bushel or hiding it because you don't want anybody to know what you believe, and they need this. If you do that, then you are no different than the 666. However, if you let that light shine, then it begins to infiltrate the entire earth. So mankind begins to change, and you begin to see racism rise to the surface. It boils to the surface, and you begin to see sexism boil to the surface. And you begin to see anti-Semitism brought to the surface. You begin to see the hate against people who are homosexual, transgender, brought to the surface. It reaches ahead. Why? Because if you are the light, you are showing it up. Okay. You can't correct what you don't know. So how do you correct it? By embracing the truth about it. And when you begin to embrace the truth about it, this is what you begin to see. You begin to see the people who perpetrate racism begin to say, that's not right. The attitudes begin to change. The ones who are pushing sexism, that begins to change. I said to you that this whole Me Too movement had gone too far, and it's going to take a black woman to correct it. African woman corrected it. The one who did it started going on, they invited to talk shows on radio, on TV, and talking about what it really means. And guess what? It is not like it was when, if you touched somebody 15 years ago and you say, I'm sorry, and we got this thing settled now between us, but you still got to quit your job. There's some balance in there now. Now, I am not saying that any of it is justified. But I am saying forgiveness is real. That's what I am saying. And if you have forgiven me, yes, I was stupid, disrespectful, all of that, for having done that. But once the forgiveness takes place, then you have restored me to where I was prior to that happening. Now it's incumbent upon me to make sure it doesn't happen again. Can you see that? Yes. So that's what I mean when I talk about letting your light shine. That when I talk about you being the light, when I talk about us seeing what needs to be corrected and correcting it by correcting ourselves. All right. So this is a number, 666. It's a number that hides the truth of itself, but it hides it in plain sight. An example of that is what we read in verse 18. This is the number of man. You see? It is a numeric symbol of a spiritual truth that you can only understand by being able to decode Revelation. If you cannot decode Revelation, you cannot understand the true nature of what 666 is. If you just look at Revelation and use it, look at it rather, as a physical material entity or explanation rather of what is to come, then you will never understand 666. However, if you are able to understand what it means when it says, I saw a new heaven and a new earth, when it said, I saw it coming out of heaven, coming out of enlightenment, when you can understand what that means, when you cease to take the description of the New Jerusalem, when you seek to take the description of New Jerusalem and equate it to a physical Jerusalem in the Palestine that's called Israel, then you can't understand Revelation. However, when you know that it's talking about righteousness, and this New Jerusalem is talking about righteousness, and the new heaven and the new earth, if there's a new one, it had to be an old one. So the old way of understanding things will not lead you to righteousness. But the new way of understanding, the way that is shown to you from the wisdom of the Creator, then you are righteousness, and it shows you how by virtue of all of the symbols that are used there. However, if you don't know how to decode Revelation, when you start talking about the streets paved with gold, crystal sea, tree of life in the midst of the garden, you are describing heaven. That's what you say. That's what heaven looks like. My mama walking the streets of heaven, right? You talk about Peter standing at the gate, standing at the pearly gate with the key hanging on the shelf, because Jesus said you have the keys. That's crazy. That's not what he's talking about. When you're able to decode that, then you can understand 666. Because the true nature of our being is wrapped up in this. Are you following me? So this is a number that religion uses to manipulate and control people through fear. As long as man looks to the future for someone to decode Revelations, it will never happen. Every generation says it's going to come, it's going to come. It never will happen. Why? Because it is not coming. It is here and has always been here. But we have been guided to a place of selfishness and greed, and our eyes have been blind. We have taken on the mark of the beast in our right hand and on our forehead. And that's why we've not been able to decode it. The power to stand against the adversity of those who will belittle you, and the power of understanding that comes through the opening of the third eye, these things we have given up because by virtue of having submitted to the beast. This is the marks. These are the marks that we are talking about. So, when man lives in the now and stop looking to tomorrow, why? Jesus said, take no thought for tomorrow. Tomorrow has enough of its own evil. Yeah. If you deal with the now today, then you would understand that there is no tomorrow. And when we deal with the now, the scales falls from the eye, and spiritual sight is restored, and 666 becomes 333 above and 333 below. Which is what? Balance. And at this point in the journey, this is when Adam becomes a co-creator with the one who created it. Adam is a creator. Man is a creator, but he's not a co-creator. Because if you are a co-creator, then you don't create anything that's adverse to the one who created you. But when you create a religion that is devoid of spiritual power and spiritual essence and understanding, then you have created something, but you're not a co-creator. Now, we can't help but be creative because the one who created us is a creator.
Right.
And we were created in that image. So we can't help but create. You creating something all the time. The question is, what are you creating? So when the eye is open, that's when we become co-creators. If we don't seek to disconnect from the power, the energy, the manipulation of the religious concepts, then the eye will remain sightless. You won't be able to see. It will be flickers every once in a while. And that's what got us here. Why? Because there were flickers. It got to be more than this. There were flashes of light. This doesn't make sense. I don't understand it. It doesn't make sense. And then you get to a place where you are so disenchanted with what's going on around you, you begin in your heart to seek something that's truth. And you are led to a place where there is truth. So, this is for those who listen later, listen now, whatever. You may ask yourself, why is it, or how is it, that a 666 could be privy to this understanding? Me, how could this 666? How could you get this understanding? The answer really isn't complicated. The 666, who is enlightened, sought the wisdom that covered the deep, and out of the deep came what? Understanding. Let me show you what I'm saying. The 666 wanted to understand what it meant when it says, "And the darkness covered the deep." And when the 666 understood that, the eye was open. What are you talking about? The scripture says that the darkness covered the deep, and out of the darkness came the light. Doesn't it? Mm-hmm. The deep, when you look at the deep in the Hebrew, it talks about urine. It talks about all these vowel things. These are symbols of what was really there. It's hidden in plain sight. What's in the deep? The deep is talking about those things that are in the deep recesses of the hearts of those who have no empathy, who have no compassion, who can hang a man and go to church the next hour. What are you talking about? Racism is in the deep. Sexism is in the deep. Hating people because of their sexual orientation is in the deep. Murder is in the deep. Lynching is in the. You understand?
Yeah.
And what is this darkness? The wisdom. Wisdom covers all of this. And an understanding of what's in the deep is the light that comes out of wisdom, because light represents understanding. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So the wisdom of what's in the deep is available, but you have to seek it. And when you seek it, there is an initiation process. You go through stuff. There's a battle with what you have been taught. There is a struggle with what you have seen. But you stay the course. And if you stay the course, That's when the eye is open, and that's when you can see what's in the deep, and that's when you can begin to understand that you are being rewarded because of the struggle that you have had in taking this journey. And at that point, you become responsible for the deliverance of the whole of 666. You become responsible for the deliverance of mankind from his blissful blindness. When you are privy to this understanding, it's available to everybody. But mankind has become so comfortable with where it is until it desires to stay blind. This is my church. You can't make me leave my home church. I ain't going to church because they ain't talking about nothing. I'm going to church because they ain't talking about nothing. I was there today, they ain't talking, why you go? If you get nothing, why you go? When people say to me, I don't even know why I go because I don't get nothing out of going. I say, okay, so if you go to the restaurant and pay for food and you leave hungry because you didn't eat, are you going back? They didn't serve you, but you paid for the food. Are you going back? No. What's the difference? So it is up to us to find a way to reach people without demeaning them. No one demeaned us. No one tried to make us look like we were stupid because we were trying to understand something. It's what happened. The questions were answered in a very respectful way. So, should you not be the same to others? So, perfection. What is perfection? Perfection comes from discomfort, illusions, comes from false comfort. Perfection comes from discomfort, and illusions come from false comfort. When you are uncomfortable, that's when your perfection comes. When you feel like I'm religious, I'm saved, I'm going to heaven, that's an illusion. That's false comfort. Why? Because what you have been taught about heaven is not true. The streets of heaven are not paved with gold. There's no crystal city. Those things are not. There's no pearly gates. That's talking about the New Jerusalem. And it's indicative of what righteousness looks like. Perfection is this sincere desire to know the truth because the truth makes us free. Free from what? Didn't Jesus say it? Know the truth and the truth will make you free. Free from what?
Is that rhetorical?
No. You want to answer it? You can. Seriously. Free from what? What does it free us from?
Would it be our thoughts, the way we think of things, religion?
Yep.
Anything that...
Spiritual blindness.
Yeah.
It frees us from greed, fear, free from religious dogma and political manipulation.
Okay.
That's what Jesus is talking about. Be intimate with the truth, and the truth will make you free. That's what he's talking about. Know means to be intimate with. And Adam knew Eve. Know means to be intimate with. Be intimate with the truth, and the truth will free you from religious dogma, governmental manipulation, fear, and greed. Any questions? Have I made sense? Okay. Are there any comments? If there are no questions and no comments, I'm done. Go ahead, Evan.
Well, that one, and those who overcome, those who do not accept the mark to, and won't be able to buy and sell, those who are intimate with the truth, how do we make it?
That's the truth.
That's the truth. Okay.
When you're intimate with the truth, right?
Okay. Yeah.
What did Jesus say? Seek ye first the kingdom principle, righteousness, right?
Mm-hmm.
The New Jerusalem is what? Righteousness.
Right.
Seek ye first the kingdom of God and righteousness, and guess what? All these other things will be added. So when people say, he'll make a way out of no way, that's what they're talking about. And don't realize it.
So we don't have to seek those things.
No.
We just seek the righteousness.
They seek the righteousness. And regardless of what religion and government attempts to do to you, will not be successful. Because you are not under their authority. The authority that you are under has created everything that is and everything that shall be.
And I also said where you also been telling us, know who you are. When
Know
you
who
know
you
who you are, then none of that stuff moves you.
None. None. I told you earlier, that summer when we spent $14,000 and don't know where it came from. And I'm very serious. It's there. It happened. And that was on top of all the other expenses that we had that summer. Let me share this with you, and I'm truly done unless there are comments or questions. When it talks about buying and selling, it's not talking about going to the store. It's talking about functioning in a society. When I left, and some of you probably heard it again, but it just ain't like you don't, so I feel good about it. When I left Mount Calvary, the amount of money that went out of my household was twice as much, well, more than twice as much, as what I have been receiving from Great and Faith. And here come mine. And they refused to even pay me what they owed me. And when I got home and realized what had happened, I'm like, what have I done? What have I done? So I'm in the den praying. And I hear this voice say, and I had to preach my way through it. Because that's all I knew at that time. Not one time did we miss a bill. Not one time. Not one time. How we did it, I don't know. But we did it. And with nobody in the house working but me. And I said to Phoebe, nope, not come back to work. We weren't working when we got here. We won't do it now. Because I believe that if you call me, you got to take care of me. And we made it. We got through it. Not by seeing what the end is going to be. Not even by seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. But we made it. Because I trusted. I believed that I couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel, but I knew it was there. I knew it was there. Why? Because it's always the darkest before the dawn. And guess what? Trouble don't last always. Those are the things that got me through that. And I'm saying to you, there is not a concern about being able to function because guess what? He got you. And no man can pluck you from his hand. Did Jesus say that?
Yes.
Jesus is saying, once you submit yourself to the authority of a boom, once you submit yourself to the authority of the one who created you, nobody has authority over you. Nobody can pull you away from his authority. That's what he's saying. So that authority is what takes care of you because of who you are. And there are times when you have to walk away from people you love in order to love them. There are times you got to walk away because the energy is so negative until the eye gets cloudy. You can't see straight. You have to walk away. Does it hurt? Yes, it does. But it's better to hurt for a day than to suffer for a year. That's all I'm saying. When you know it's time, you do it. And guess what? You trust. That's what you do. You just trust what you know. Trust what you know. Trust the thing that you are intimate with. Any questions? Okay.
I have a question, but it's not about what we talked about. I'm thinking about the people and I don't know if y'all talked about this before I got here, but the people who are in California, all the purging is taking place.
See, sometimes the universe has to make a statement before men will listen. We have been talking about reversing global climate change. Let me say that. I'd rather say climate change than global warming because they manipulate that. We have been talking about reversing it, right? The only way it can be reversed is for mankind to change its habits. Sometimes statements have to be made from the universe to force man to change his habits. Is this a fire here and a fire there? It's just burning wood. But we'll begin to see the pain and suffering.
Yes.
Now what's happening? More people are talking about climate change.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
So there were the way of his ways are not our ways. His thoughts are not our thoughts. In other words, the way he does things baffles us sometimes. The way we think about things, it doesn't think about things that way. It sees the greater end because it knows what the end is. We say, this should not happen. I wish I could stop this, blah, blah, blah. Those kinds of things. But the Creator says, if you stop it, then the damage will continue. So this is what I see. And if there was not such a deep desire for spiritual balance, for truth to prevail, these things wouldn't be happening. These things, I told you, racism bubbled to the top. Why? Because we have to see the things that need corrected.
Right.
What's happening in California had to bubble to the top, so we can see what needs to be corrected. You see?
Yes.
Does it hurt? Yes, it hurts. I don't know anyone who was directly affected by, but it hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts.
Yeah.
And I don't want to even think about the idea of someone in their home and the fire has surrounded them, or someone leaving in their car and it's on fire and they die in that fire. If you could look at what this lady was recording on her phone when she was driving through the fire,
I saw that.
if you could look at that and you don't have compassion, something is wrong with you.
Yeah.
The Creator allows us to see things like this, so we have a heart for that, and when you have a heart for that, then that is one with the heart of the Creator, because He does not seek to destroy us. But sometimes the universe has to speak so that things can change. And it doesn't speak the way we do. So the language of the universe is not our language.
So is water from the east, water that flooded the east coast, and now it's the fire on the west coast?
And it's all because of the way things are set up. You have more water on the east coast than you do on the west coast. It's the universe speaking. Balance has to come. And if you have a scale and you have 2 buckets on the scale and you have more in one bucket than the other, this bucket is going to rock when you start filling up the other bucket, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's going. In other words, things are being shaken up. They're just being shaken in a way that we never thought they would be, and that's the reason we have to continue to say, don't try to shake it. It is what it is. Let it be what it's going to be. Trust what you believe. I hope that answers your question.
It did. I think about the snow globe thing. You shake it.
Yeah. But then guess what? It all settles.
Everything's,
Yeah, that's a great example. Okay. Let me say this, Neil, so that we can, get it to everyone. I want to repeat it, if I don't remind me. On the 22nd of December, the teachers will be meeting in Santuc, South Carolina. Saturday at the Richard Ranch. Okay? On the 22nd. Why am I telling you that? Needs your energy, plus I want you to know so you won't be here. Come on the 22nd. Okay? That's room one. It is necessary to do this in order to set the agenda for what is to come. You know what's funny? We talk about things and the agenda is being set and we don't even know what it is, but we see it. In the eyes of what we've talked about.
And it's 12/22.
Yes. 12/22/7.
Which is my birthday. And we're gonna turn up.
A glass. Okay. If there are no questions or comments, I'm done.
Here, James?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I don't have any questions, but it's just, again, something that, I know that I need to ponder on. So I'm just going to, just spend some time just going back over and, listening to the podcast. But, again, just very pertinent word, at this time and season. And so, again, I thank you just for your teaching today.
Oh, you're quite welcome, sir. I thank you all for the energy to do it. Okay, I appreciate that. Oh God, okay. Anyone else? Okay, be blessed. I'm gone.
One little thing.
Okay, dear.
There's lots of smoke out here.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about that.
Last night when I saw the amount of smoke in San Francisco, I thought about how the position of San Jose in relationship to the smoke. But that's another thing. Bring you deal with it. Bring away
Okay.
the mountain, deal with it. Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you, my dear.
You're welcome. Bye, y'all.
Bye bye.
All right.
Bye bye.
Probably.
Who was who?
Sounds like Sheldon.
It was.
Oh,
Sheldon will be in on the 20th. Mark that date, Janisa.
that's your fighting partner.
Mark that date.
Linda.
Mm-hmm.
That's Linda's partner.
He will be in on the 20th.
How would he know we loved him if we didn't give him mess every time we saw him? He'd go home and be lonely and sad.
Yes, he would. We're done, right? I went